There's a power within you. It lifts your life to the highest level. It brings you success, companionship, health, happiness, and peace of mind. And as you tap into this power, it responds to you because it is within you. And that's why spirituality rocks. Hi, welcome. I am Kathy Caputo. I am an ordained minister in the New Thought movement and a practitioner at the Center for Spiritual Living, Long Island, here in Hicksville, New York. And I'm sitting in for Dr. Janine Burns tonight because she is attending a memorial service for her very good friend, Reverend Mary Tumpkin of the Universal Foundation for Better Living. And Dr. Janine will return next week. So I'd like to talk a little bit about New Age, New Thought. Sorry, not New Age. There's a big difference. And this is what we teach here. We teach New Thought. And New Thought teaches that there's one ultimate loving energy. And it is present in all that exists. It's present in everyone as everyone. And you can call it whatever you want. You can call it God. You can call it spirit. You can call it universal energy or divine love. It doesn't make a difference. Just know that you are one with this divine, with this love that made you out of itself. And just know that when we align ourselves with this God, with this spirit, we have the power to reverse anything in our lives. We can reverse illness and disease. We can reverse lack, loss, and limitation of any kind. And we can live the life that we want to live, that wonderful, prosperous, healthy, loving, and joyous life. And just remember that we live in an abundant universe, that God is that givingness that is always giving to us, always giving us everything that we need and more. And all we need to do is to accept it. Just accept it into your life with absolute faith and trust that everything you need for that wonderful, healthy, joyous life is right there for you. And so right now, I'd like to let you know that we're going to have a wonderful, wonderful show tonight. And the topic is real love. And it's based on this book by Dr. Greg Bear. And it's called Real Love, The Truth About Finding Unconditional Love and Fulfilling Relationships. And isn't that what we all want? Whether we were born a second ago, or we were born 105 years ago, or somewhere in between, like most of us, we're all looking for real love. And so right now, I'd like to introduce my guest and my co-host, actually, Barbara Grimminger. She is a practitioner at the Center for Spiritual Living. Welcome back, Barbara.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great. I'm so glad you're with me tonight. And my special guest tonight is Dr. Frank zumMallen from the Awakening Ways Spiritual Community at Atascadero, California. I'd like to let you know a little bit about him before we say hi to him. Dr. Frank is an ordained minister of religious science and a graduate of the Emerson Theological Institute. He has a BA and an MS in education and doctorates in divinity and religious science. He is a student of transpersonal psychology as well as both Eastern and Western mysticism. He has spent many years as a teacher of practical spirituality and applied metaphysics. In addition, he has trained as a precognitive re-education intuitive healing facilitator and is a real love professional relationship coach trained by the book's author, helping couples and individuals to bring divine love to all of their relationships. Welcome, Dr. Frank.
Hi, it's good to be back.
Well, thank you so much. Well, as I was reading a little bit of the book, in the beginning, Dr. Bear says that he was taught when he was a child that if you work very hard and if you have really high goals for yourself, you will achieve success. And it was kind of inferred that you'd be happy at that point. Mm-hmm. But he found out when he was about 35, didn't bring him happiness. And yeah, go ahead.
And Greg was highly successful. He was very successful, ophthalmic surgeon, a Harvard med grad, and was very successful, and yet, and was married and had children and a beautiful home. I've been there. It's
Mm-hmm.
an estate, and yet he was miserably unhappy.
He was, yeah, yeah. And he said that he started using some distractions like drugs.
Yes,
And like we all do, we find some distraction that'll keep us from thinking about that unhappiness. And then
right.
he found out that he was missing an ingredient in his life, and that ingredient was that real love.
Yes,
So, can you tell us what that real love is?
yes. Most of us go through life believing that love is how another person makes us feel. Real love, unconditional love, is unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person. It doesn't mean we're responsible for making them happy. It only means that we unconditionally care about that happiness and we give them the room to be happy.
Okay.
That's the definition of real love. It's
Okay.
very different from what most of us think of as love.
Mm-hmm. So, love is really giving, it's not getting, which
Yes,
most of us are
exactly.
looking to do.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I know that he mentions that when his life really turned around, when he learned that unconditional love, when he learned to give that unconditional love.
Exactly. And that's really the key to all unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
Is the key is in the giving. And unconditional means expecting nothing back in return, giving it simply to be giving it. And then looking for relationships where that's true for both people.
Right. So, could you tell us a little bit about what unconditional love is versus conditional love?
Sure. Unconditional love, as I said, is unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person.
Mm-hmm.
Conditional love is most of us were raised in conditions of extremely conditional love, no matter how loved we felt as children growing up. So, for example, our parents seem to be more appreciative, seem to care about us more if we got good grades, if we we're good in sports, or we're in dance, or whatever it was that we might do. We felt more loved by our parents because of the praise that we received. That's a perfect example of a form of conditional love, because the opposite side of that is that when we don't do those things, somehow there's disappointment, there's withholding of affection, so that we learn at a very early age that love has conditions. Love looks a certain way, and it may be that we respond to a conditional form of love involving praise. It may be a conditional form of love involving power, where we see children in families that really become stubborn and confrontive with their parents because they're fighting for the love, in a sense. In the case of my family, my brother was one who always tried to please my parents. He tried to do everything perfectly. I was exactly the opposite. My parents were the center of one another's universe. There was really no room for my brother and I. I'm surprised they had children, but in those days, I guess it was mandatory. But they were really the center of one another's universe. It was very difficult for my brother and I to be part of that. And so my brother became the perfect son. He got good grades. He did everything right. He was never in trouble. I was exactly the opposite. I was the black sheep of the family. I was in trouble constantly as a child. I was capable of making very good grades, but I did just enough to get by when I was in grade school and high school. And after my mother made her transition, my brother and I were having a conversation, and I shared with him for the first time that it really made me angry that he was always the perfect child, and I was always in trouble. And his response to me was, "You have no idea how angry it made me that they paid attention to you."
See, that's amazing.
You're
So
Yeah.
you
beautiful.
see,
Yeah.
that's a perfect microcosm of conditional love.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
like
both of us were struggling for the conditional love that we never felt we got.
Right.
right. It reminded me when you were talking earlier of Pavlov's dogs. Different stimulus getting a different response. So
Exactly.
you're trying one method and getting the response from that. He's trying the other method and getting the response from that. Neither one feels like love, but that's
Yes.
still what you're seeking.
And that's a good point, because for most of us growing up, conditional love is better than no love at all.
Right.
And
Right.
since we've never experienced unconditional love, we connect the very idea of love with conditional love, and most of us spend our whole lives looking for conditional love,
Right.
thinking
Absolutely.
that's the real thing.
Right.
And so it's no wonder relationships fall apart. It's no wonder we're unhappy.
Yeah.
And you know, it's funny too what you said about your parents. In fairness to parents, we don't know how it's going to feel to be a parent. You know, you think, well, I'm going to be a parent. I'll love my child. I'll know how to love my child. No manuals come with the package.
Exactly.
And the other thing that your reading about this work brought to mind was the minute the child is born, they're immersed into a culture of competition and comparison. And
Yes.
the parent thinks that they're loving their child by supporting this track that they put them on.
Yes.
It's like, it's just so misguided. So it's great that there's now a vehicle, a tool out there that can help people learn
Right.
to truly love,
Exactly.
you know.
Yes. Yes.
We have to take just a very quick commercial break, and we're going to be back with Dr. Frank and Barbara and Real Love.
Peacefully, joyfully, I am divinely guided. Peacefully, joyfully, I follow my inner guidance. Peacefully, joyfully, I am divine.
When your cable's on the fritz, you get frustrated. When you get frustrated, your daughter imitates. When your daughter imitates, she gets thrown out of school. When she gets thrown out of school, she meets undesirables. When she meets undesirables, she ties the knot with undesirables. And when she ties the knot with undesirables, you get a grandson with a dog collar. Don't have a grandson with a dog collar. Get rid of cable and upgrade to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV. When your cable company...
Peacefully, joyfully, I am divine.
Planning an event and want to include
many
entertainment.
people. Are your finances tight lately? Afraid to open your mail or even answer your phone? Well, take heart. You don't have to live like that. If you're 62 or older and own your own home, you can join the thousands of folks who have used safe and effective government-insured reverse mortgages. The government-insured reverse mortgages from Long Island's Senior Reverse Network allow you to stay in your home and turn equity into tax-free cash. Our government-insured reverse mortgages can eliminate mortgage payments, credit card balances, or just improve your lifestyle. Do yourself a favor and solve these problems now. Call the Senior Reverse Network, and our advisors will answer all of your questions about our reverse mortgage programs. We've helped scores of senior Long Island homeowners like you who now enjoy a worry-free retirement. Get the financial security and peace of mind you've dreamed about. Pick up the phone and call us at the Senior Reverse Network now to set up a free consultation.
Call 1-800-985-REVERSE. That's 1-800-985-7383.
Peacefully, joyfully, I am divinely guided. Peacefully, joyfully, I follow my inner guidance. Peacefully.
Welcome back to Spirituality Rocks. I'm Kathy Caputo, sitting in for Dr. Janine Burns this evening, and I'm here with my co-host, Barbara Grimminger, from the Center for Spiritual Living, and on Skype, we have Dr. Frank zumMallen. I'd like to tell you before we get back, I'm very sorry we had a little bit of a technical issue if you weren't able to hear Barbara, but we have everything A-OK right now. So I'd like to tell you a couple of things that Dr. Janine offers to help you with your spiritual practice. And one of them is this spiritual prescription. And if you send her a self-addressed stamped envelope, she will send you one of these. And at the bottom, it says, this prescription will be filled by the power of spirit within you. And refills are unlimited. And it says, caution, do not contaminate with negative thoughts. And on the back, she's written a wonderful affirmative prayer for you to say every day. And affirmative prayer means you're not asking for something. You're affirming that it's already here, that God has already given it to you, and what you're doing is you're accepting it into your life with absolute faith and trust that it's already done. So this is one of the things, and when you send that self-addressed stamped envelope, send it to the Guiding Light Foundation, Post Office Box 472, Woodbury, New York, 11797. And there's probably a banner going across the bottom of your screen with that address. And I'll tell you it once more. The Guiding Light Foundation, Post Office Box 472, Woodbury, New York, 11797. The other thing that Dr. Janine offers for you is this CD, and it's called Tunes for Transformation, Spiritual Affirmation Jingles. Now, Dr. Janine actually wrote all the jingles, the affirmations on here. She also wrote the music. And as we're going out and coming back in from our commercials, you hear Dr. Janine singing one of them. They're very, very powerful. And the jingles will help you to remember the affirmations. So if you would like this, please send her a note with a check or money order, again, made out to the Guiding Light Foundation. It is $13, and it includes postage and handling. And again, that goes to the Guiding Light Foundation, Post Office Box 472, Woodbury, New York. So we're back, and we're going to talk some more about real love. So what we'd like to do right now is get back to Dr. Frank and talk a little bit more about real love. So Dr. Frank, how has this helped you in your life, learning about real love?
It's completely changed my life. Like Greg, I found other things to distract me from the issues in my life. In my case, it was alcohol, and I've been sober now for 25 years. And like Greg, I found that when I was going through the 12-step program, and there's a portion of the 12-step program where you really take a look at your own. You do your own inventory. You do a self-inventory that really looks at all the positives and all the negatives. I was like Greg. It wasn't enough for me to know what those things were. I wanted to know why. I wanted to know what it was that made me who I was. And so when I discovered real love and I began to understand this idea of conditional love, and in particular when I learned what we haven't talked about yet, the getting and protecting behaviors that we all use in our relationships, it completely transformed everything I do with everyone, with the people that I interact with on a daily basis, with my wife. I have adult children and I have grandchildren, and as I was telling you, Kathy, before we went on air, I didn't know anything about this stuff when I was raising my kids, and I had my own issues when I was raising my kids, and I created a lot of damage. And so what real love has done is it's enabled me to start rebuilding those relationships, because it's enabled me to approach them understanding that it was never their job to love me. It was only my job to love them. And that's the real key to real love in parenting, is understanding that as parents, it's not our children's job to love us. It's our job to love them. Yeah. And that has made all the difference in the world in my relationship with my two grown sons.
Yeah, we don't realize what it is that we do to children when we're not giving them that unconditional love. And sometimes it's difficult, when the kids are running around, and it's very difficult. Yes. One of the things that I liked about Louise Hay's book, though, You Can Heal Your Life, is she told us to ask your parents about their lives, about their childhood, so you can kind of understand where they came from also.
Yes.
Yeah. So Barbara, you were just going to say something I thought about parenting also. Barbara has a son. I do not.
Well, I enjoyed reading these points, and it just brought me to realize how, like we said before, you have a child and you get immersed in a field of competition and comparison. And it's good to be mindful of that reaction in yourself. And I think that this real love can point you to those reactions. You can start to evaluate what you're actually doing with your child. And I think it's a good challenge to give yourself, to separate out where the love is, and to try to see through all those behaviors and all those things that you, as a parent, you get invested in your child's success. You get invested in their performance.
Exactly.
And I think that the child can interpret that as long as I perform, as long as I make them proud, that's where the love is. But what you want them to understand is, no, that's just like the icing on the cake. The love is the foundation of, this is where you come to just be at peace. You come home to be at peace. This is the safe place to land, no matter what's been going on.
Yeah.
And this is a place where, as parents, if we can get past our expectations of our children, and our disappointments with our children, any time, one of the most destructive phrases I can imagine, and I used it as a parent on many occasions, I'm not angry at you, I'm angry at what you did. Every child in the world knows that's a lie. Now we've compounded being angry at them with lying to them. And because when we're angry with something they've done, we are angry at them. And when we're angry at them, in that moment it is impossible for us to love them, because we're thinking only about ourselves. We're not thinking about them. And so if we as parents can begin to look at our behavior, if we can be self-aware enough to see how we're parenting, what we're doing in that relationship, and we can begin to use logical consequences, because children need to be taught what it's like to live in the real world, and the skills that are necessary, but to bring logical consequences without anger, without disappointment, without irritation, then we're going to have healthy children who are going to grow up feeling loved.
Right.
Exactly.
And be able to bring that into their relationships and their work relationships and
Exactly.
everything in their lives, because they've got a great example.
Right. And just as we learn to parent from our parents, we learn to love from being loved by our parents, so we can change that cycle. We can set an example for a different way of doing things that is more loving, more empowering.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
As I was
And
telling
that's really one of the gifts of this book,
Yeah.
is that it gives us a model to look at to see what it really means to love. And for many of us, for the first time ever, we come to an understanding of what love is.
Right, exactly. As I was telling you before the show started, my father actually learned how to do that on his own, because he didn't have that. But he must have known about this book a long time ago, and changed that, was able to show that love to me, even though there were times when he had to discipline me.
Right.
And I guess that's it. You still have to be the parent. You still have to discipline a child sometimes, but you can do it with that foundation of love.
Well,
Yes.
isn't the root
And
word
if you can do that without anger, without any negative emotion attached, it becomes consequences. If you have any anger, any negative emotion attached to it, it's punishment. And punishment is where the damage is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the behaviors that we tend to take on.
Right.
And
Getting and protecting behaviors.
yes, could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I'll be happy to. Getting and protecting behaviors are basically the behaviors that we use either to get love in relationships, to feel like we're being loved in relationships, or to protect ourselves from people who are trying to essentially take love from us, who are trying to take from us. And all of us have some combination of those that we use. There's running, there's attacking, my mind just went blank. Hello, Frank. There's
manipulation? I think was one of them.
Manipulation, right.
Yeah, manipulation. There are 5 of them that we all use in one form or another that Greg talks about in the book. And it's really interesting that we tend to use the same ones over and over. And we tend to get into relationships where our getting and protecting behaviors are kind of how do I want to say this? They kind of mesh, they kind of meld with the other person so that the other person responds to those getting and protecting behaviors. And it's all about seeking that conditional love. That's what they're for. They're tools that we use to seek the conditional love. So attacking is something that someone uses who's looking for power. Running, whether it's physically walking away or whether it's just closing down, is something that someone uses who's looking to feel safe, who's not feeling safe in that moment. And so there are many different ways that we, all of which Greg talks about beautifully in the book and really lays them out in a really neat little list. There are many ways that all of us try to get love or try to protect ourselves when we're feeling attacked.
Right, right. And sometimes we feel attacked when we're really not being attacked. There's a great story in the book about the man who's drowning, and then and somebody comes up behind him and is holding onto his neck, and he thinks that, oh my gosh, this man's trying to hurt me. And all along, that man was drowning, and he was just reaching out for help.
Yes.
And that's basically what's happening in every relationship.
That's right. When my sons were little, the very last time we went on vacation together, when one of them was in college and one of them was in high school, they were having a conversation in the backseat of the car as we were driving, and they were talking about a vacation trip that we had taken when they were quite young. My youngest son, I think, was in either pre-kindergarten or kindergarten at that time, and we were in the mountains of California, just outside of Sequoia National Park, at a place called 3 Rivers, and we were camping there. Right on a river, and I was down at the river with the kids. They were splashing around in the water, and I went back up to the tent to get a soda or whatever it was I went back up to the tent for, and when I came back, they were both drowning. Wow. And I went in the water, and I got them out, and they were safe, and everything was fine. I just got them out after they'd gotten a few mouthfuls of water, but the conversation went like this. Remember that time we went to 3 Rivers? Oh, yeah, I remember that. That's when you tried to drown me. Tried to drown you? I didn't try to drown you. I was trying to save myself. Yeah. You see, it's a literal example of that story in the book. Wow. It's what we do. When we are drowning in our own emotional negativity, we reach out to try to get other people to save us. And in the process of doing that, they feel attacked by us. And unfortunately, that is all too often what happens in relationships. And it's difficult, unless you can begin looking at it right away, it's difficult in retrospect to figure out how it all got started, because it mushrooms. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
It absolutely does, yeah. Go ahead,
it's like misinterpretation. It's almost like you're an innocent bystander to someone else's issues, and then you misinterpret it that one time, so then you start getting into anticipating that happening again, and when it does, that's when the cycle starts.
Yeah, several years ago, my father-in-law was in the process of making his transition. He had cancer, and I needed to get some blood work from the lab, from a hospital lab, to take to his doctor, because I was taking him into the doctor that day. And I went to the lab, and it was just a mob scene. There were people everywhere. And I walked up to the counter, and I said to the woman, I need to get this blood work from my father-in-law. And I filled out the paper, and here's the paperwork, and I need to get it as soon as possible. And she looked at me like I had 2 heads, because she was overwhelmed. And she said, you know what, I'll get to it when I get to it. It may be tomorrow. And I said, hey, look, I've got an appointment this afternoon with and we were stuck, and I took a step back, and I remembered real love. And I looked at her, and I said, okay, maybe we can start over again. I'm sorry, you're having a bad day, and I'm having a bad day. and I'm really sorry. Is there anything that we can do? I have an appointment with my father-in-law's doctor. He has cancer. I need to see the doctor today, and the doctor needs the blood work. Can you help me? I walked out within 15 minutes with the paperwork. Simply because I took a step back, recognized both of us were drowning, and was able to deal with it in an entirely different way. And that's really what real love does.
Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, and that's another important thing, is that real love just isn't about our intimate relationships. It isn't about our family relationships. I can have a real love experience with a clerk in the supermarket.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's great. Great example. So we have one more break, and we will be right back with Spirituality Rocks.
Peacefully, joyfully, I am divinely guided. Peacefully, joyfully, I follow my inner guidance. Peacefully, joyfully, I am
YesWeCare.net is a 501c3 charity that provides help to veterans and their families. Please visit YesWeCare.net and donate in any way you can by purchasing our beautiful frame prints or relaxation CDs and DVDs, even smooth jazz CDs. YesWeCare.net. Remember, our troops are on their way home. They need all the support they can get. YesWeCare.net.
Are you planning an event and want to include entertainment, but you're not sure where to turn?
Act1Entertainment.net has provided over 1,500 events with quality, affordable live entertainment at private parties, corporate affairs, festivals, bike rallies, and more. Act 1 will fit into your budget. They're friendly, reliable, and do all the legwork for you. They take all major credit cards. Log on to Act1Entertainment.net for a free, no-obligation price quote, or call 631-758-3505 for a brochure.
You'll be happy you did.
Peacefully, joyfully, I am divinely guided. Peacefully, joyfully, I follow my inner.
Welcome back to Spirituality Rocks. I'm Kathy Caputo, sitting in for Dr. Janine Burns this evening. I'm here with my co-host, Barbara Grimminger from the Center of Spiritual Living, and on Skype, our special guest, Dr. Frank zumMallen. And what we're doing right now is this is the segment that we talk about affirmations and our affirmative prayer. So an affirmation is really a short statement of something that is true on a spiritual nature for you. And many times it's in the face of evidence to the contrary. You might be actually experiencing something different from your spiritual truth. So we know that what we believe and what we affirm, we attract to us. So what we want to do is we want to affirm what we want rather than what we don't want. And we can change our beliefs by using affirmations, by making statements that is your truth. So let's say you're not feeling very well right now. You can make a statement that says, I know that I am perfect health because I am one with spirit. I have all the energy and the vitality to do all that I need to do. And you can use that statement every day to make sure you experience that wonderful health that is already yours. So what we'd like to do today is have an affirmation for unconditional love. So what we can say is, I love myself unconditionally and give love unconditionally. Because we really need to love ourselves before we can give that to somebody else, right? We can't give what we don't already have. So, Dr. Frank, would you like to talk a little bit about that, about loving ourselves first?
Yeah, it's an interesting it's an interesting idea. We're always told that, but unfortunately, most of us don't know what that is. We don't know how to love ourselves unconditionally. When we are raised in a situation of conditional or imitation love our entire lives, all we know is that. And so even in our own relationship to ourselves, frequently or usually, we apply the same standards to ourselves. And so one of the things that we look for in real love is what we call a wise man or a wise woman, which is somebody who can love us unconditionally, warts and all. In fact, there's even a story in the Real Love book about the Wart King, the wise man and the Wart King, where Greg talks about the fact that we all have warts. We all have things about us that aren't very pretty, and that we don't like to face and we don't like to be reminded of. But a wise person will be able to love us with that. Will be able to love us, warts and all, and that we seek that. That part of learning to love ourselves is to find people who can unconditionally love us, and what we call fill our love buckets, can fill that for us until we can really heal ourselves to be able to love ourselves unconditionally.
Right.
And so it's a process that we have to go through, and then we're able to love others unconditionally.
And a lot of times we're looking to other people that may not be that wise man or wise woman in the relationship, because we're attracting kind of what we already are in our own consciousness,
the law of attraction.
The law of attraction. And it's funny because it reminded me of that movie, Jerry Maguire, where he said to Renee Zellweger, "You complete me," and probably every woman in the world melted with that, but he didn't realize he was already perfect, whole, and complete. He didn't need her to complete him, and that's what we do. We look to somebody else to complete us, don't we?
To fill those parts, that feel empty, like you were saying, fill up your love bucket.
Right,
So.
and literally in that case, in the case of Jerry Maguire, he's describing perfectly imitation love. He's describing this idea of conditional love. I love you because. Okay, anytime we say I love you because, what we're really doing is we're saying I place conditions on our relationship, and it's being able to say I love you, period.
Right. I don't need a reason to love you, and we don't need a reason to love ourselves, right?
That's right.
We should treat ourselves with the same kindness we show to others.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Talk to ourselves with the same kind, gentle voice we would use with others, right?
Exactly.
Don't usually do that. My father I grew up, I guess I was in my 20s when All in the Family was on, you know, and Archie used to call Edith Dingbat, you know. So my father used to kiddingly call my mother and me Dingbat 1 and Dingbat 2. And I find out of that kidding, it stayed in my head. And when I do something wrong, I hear myself saying, "Oh, you dingbat," and I have to stop doing that because I'm not loving myself when I
That's
do that.
right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we tend to do that a lot.
When I was a kid, I had some learning disabilities, apparently. I had figure ground problems. In other words, I couldn't really see. If I were to look in a cabinet for something and it was a cabinet that was full of all kinds of stuff, I would never find what you sent me for because it would just be such a clutter that I wouldn't be able to see anything. And my mother used to say to me, if it was a snake, it would have bit you. It's right in front of you. And I still do that to myself sometimes. I'll be looking for something and finally find it and go, oh my God, if it was a snake, it would have bit me. Taking me right back to that place again.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We do that a lot. So what I'd like to do is Barbara is going to do an affirmation, a treatment for us, an affirmative prayer for unconditional love, right?
Yes, that would be my pleasure. So I'm just going to take a nice deep breath in and out and just turn to the truth within. So this treatment is for each one listening and each one here to know that the love of spirit is unconditional. There is one universal life. That life is God, that life is spirit, that life is a pure, perfect, infinite love. That love surrounds us. We live in an atmosphere of love, and that love indwells us. Each one was created with all the love they need, and they now give themselves permission to love themselves and to allow that love of spirit to move through them in their relationships, in their community, and in the world. Each one of us desires the same thing, to live in a world that operates from love, to feel that love in every relationship and in every situation. We already have it within. By means of this treatment, it is freed up to express. Spirit desires to express its love through us. And we're so happy and grateful to be that tool of Spirit's love. And so with gratitude, knowing that we were created from an unconditional love, an infinite love, and that we carry that love with us wherever we go, this word is now released into the law, and so it is.
And so it is. Beautiful, Barbara. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And
You.
treatment, again, is to treat our consciousness, to bring us to know the truth about ourselves. Again, whether we're experiencing it or not,
Exactly.
it helps us to change.
Right.
Yeah.
The essence of spirit is always good, and the essence of spirit is always present. It gets covered up with our thoughts, our beliefs, what's happened to us, what's happening around us, but the core of the good is always present, and it's stronger than whatever appears to be different than it. So when we're experiencing conflict or disharmony in a relationship, we can affirm that the love is there, the love is stronger than the conflict, and that love can heal that conflict. We need to learn to trust that in those properties, in those qualities, that they're bigger than the apparent condition. They're bigger than the appearance. So the treatment is very good for that.
And there's a saying in our tradition: you treat and move your feet.
Yes.
Exactly.
And in this case, real love is literally how we can move our feet.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's one of the beautiful things about it.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
and it brings up the idea that love is an action, not just a feeling or not just
Yes.
a quality, but that you can take action to, like you were saying, I didn't understand that at first. Seek out the wise man. I didn't understand that it was actually look for a person that can
Yes.
actually do that for you, that can be that action of love in your life.
Right.
And then you, in turn, can then be that action of love for and
Right.
with others.
Someone else, right, exactly. It's funny,
Exactly.
someone told me one time what they do when somebody cuts them off when you're riding and when you're driving a car, and I have a big problem with that. I can see some of the things that come out of my mouth when somebody does that until someone told me about somebody told me about what they do is they say, oh, there goes God. And it just, when you do that, it really does help to get the anger out when you realize, that's an expression of God, that's an expression of spirit. How can I be angry at spirit? That's just, again, their action. It's not the essence of that person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another thing that you can do with that kind of situation it's the tool that I used, and that was whenever I would be cut off or see someone driving recklessly, I would always say, oh, that poor person must have a terrible emergency. I'll pray for him.
Yes, that's good too, to pray for that person. Exactly. That's
good.
fantastic. So we have one more commercial break, and we will be right back with Real Love.
Peacefully, joyfully, I am divinely guided. Peacefully, joyfully, I follow my inner guidance. Peacefully, joyfully, I am
YesWeCare.net is a 501c3 charity that provides help to veterans and their families. Please visit YesWeCare.net and donate in any way you can by purchasing our beautiful frame prints or relaxation CDs and DVDs, even smooth jazz CDs. YesWeCare.net. Remember, our troops are on their way home. They need all the support they can get. YesWeCare.net.
Welcome to Formula Auto Wash, where every day is a great day for a car wash. Open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Sundays 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. Detailing packages for every budget, starting out at $29.99. 100% hand wash and detail centre. Hogshair and microfiber brushes and mitts. Proudly using Ecolab Blue Coral soaps and waxes. Formula Auto Wash has served the community for over 30 years. Senior discounts all day, every day. Ladies' Day Wednesday, $3 off any wash. Early bird discount Monday through Thursday till 9:30 a.m. Check out our website, formulaautowash.com.
For professional motorcycle transport and towing, think Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing. Proudly serving all of Long Island, we feature expert handling and 24/7 service. So send a limo for your toy with Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing.
peacefully, joyfully, I am divinely guided. Peacefully, joyfully, I follow my inner guidance. Peacefully.
Welcome back to Spirituality Rocks. I'm Kathy Caputo here with Barbara Grimminger and on Skype, Dr. Frank zumMallen. So, Dr. Frank, tell us a little bit more about real love.
You know, Kathy, in any relationship, there's really only three ways that we can be in relationship. We can either be in the relationship and love it, we can be in the relationship and hate it, or we can leave the relationship. And ultimately, making our partner change who they are is not one of those three things. There's basically a law of change. And the law of change says everybody's always a choice. You know, I have a choice, you have a choice. The law of choice says that I get to choose whatever I'm going to do at any moment in time. The only thing I don't get to choose is the consequences of my choices.
Yeah. That's true.
And that same thing is always true for our partner. So we don't, demanding that our partner change to make us happy ultimately does nothing more than build walls between us. And it moves us into the place of hating our relationships. And so learning to love the relationship means to trust, to have faith that our partner is doing the best they can, that they want to make the relationship work, and that they, in their own way, are doing the work to help the relationship succeed. And once we move into that place and we recognize that our partners are doing the best they can and they're trying to make the relationship succeed, now there's an open door for us to love one another.
Right.
And that's really the key to this idea of real love, is being willing to trust that our partner wants to do the best they can. They're trying to do the best they can. You know, as lousy as I was as a husband at one time, as lousy as I was as a parent, there was never a day that I woke up and said, God, I feel so good today. I think I'll make my wife's life a living hell. I didn't do that.
Right.
Okay?
Yes,
On those days when life was a living hell, it's because I was living hell.
Right. Right. It's like being generous to the other person.
Yes.
Just presuming that whatever the behavior, the intent is not to cause that problem.
That's
and
right.
when I have a practitioner client where there is a conflict, an apparent conflict or perceived conflict, I try to encourage them to just affirm that you really both do want the same thing. You both want to be happy and peaceful and fulfilled in the relationship. And to
That's right.
affirm that there is a greater power that can bring it about so that you can both be happy, satisfied, and whatever your needs are, they can both be met within the relationship.
Yeah, that's literally true. In any relationship, if you picture it like a triangle, in any relationship, we're all seeking exactly the same thing, and that is to be loved. We're seeking love. And so when we come to realize that if we give love, we will receive love. It's the law of giving and receiving, just like we talk about in our teaching all the time. That which we give, we receive. And what we do in most relationships is that we move into the relationship demanding that we receive before we give.
Right.
I love you because you do this
You
for
go
me.
first.
Let me see what you give me, then I'll decide what I'm going to give you.
Exactly. Yeah, right. And it's completely backwards.
It's like a test
of what
almost.
love really is, and the way love should be. And so this idea of being in a relationship and loving it, or being in a relationship and hating it. Most people are in relationships and hating it most of the time. You know, even people who stay married. There's some data out that suggests that most people who are married, about 75% of people who are married, would be divorced if there was a better alternative. And that's frightening.
That's sad.
When you consider the divorce rate in our country, and then you add that in on top of it, it turns out that almost 90% of the people in the country are basically saying they'd be happier not married.
Right.
And that's really sad. That's really pathetic.
Very
It means they're in the relationship and hating it. And this is a real love is a wonderful tool for being able to break through that. I would recommend to anybody who's watching, if they're not familiar with Greg Bear and with Real Love, to get the book and read it. And there's a whole bunch of other books in that series. There's books on dating, books on the workplace, books on parenting. It's really, really good information, and I really recommend it highly.
Very empowering.
Yes.
Very empowering.
Absolutely. You can see how you can turn something around. And
Yes.
I heard you talking before about, some people say, well, it's too much work. But what's your alternative? If you don't do that work, you're going to be miserable. And when you find that there's some way of having a wonderful solution, why wouldn't you do it?
And it takes
most
a
of
lot
us
of
go through our
energy.
relationships trying to be right.
Yes.
Right.
You know, that's what causes conflict in relationship, is the need to be right. And one of the things that Greg says that was one of the eye openers for me: do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Those are your only two choices. You can't be both right and happy at the same time, because when you demand the right to be right, you're making your partner wrong.
Yes.
And as soon as you do that, you've laid the groundwork for the next battle.
Exactly. Barbara, you had something real quick, I think, that you wanted to
I
talk
like
about.
your
We have a couple minutes
definition
more.
that faith is a choice to act upon a possibility. I think that's really, it's a great definition of faith, and it allows you to kind of relax instead of being in that pushing against each other, just being a little more open and yielding a little. I mean, I think it's important for people to know that, yes, you can yield. And it doesn't have to mean compromise. It doesn't have to mean giving up anything. It can just mean making space for something else to happen.
That's a really important point, because there's nowhere in real love does it say you have to be a doormat.
Yes.
Right.
You get to let your yes be yes and your no be no. And you get to say, I love you, and I really would like to have that for you, but I'm not willing to do it. I'm not able to. And that's a perfectly okay place to come from if you can do it with love.
Right, right.
It's okay to say no.
Yeah.
It's okay to say no.
Yeah. And it's sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. Otherwise, you end up in that cycle of doing something when you don't really want to, and it's that anger comes back again.
Resentment builds.
The resentment builds,
And that's because you're lying.
You're lying. That
Which is
exactly.
one of
He
the
talks
getting
about that.
protecting
That lying.
behaviors.
Exactly. And if you say no, you can always. Both of you have a choice of finding something else that will work for both of you. Exactly. It's always
so
a choice.
you might say, I'm not willing to do that, but I am willing to do this. How does that work for you?
Right.
Right. Exactly.
An acceptable substitution.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. It's that communication that a lot of times breaks down in a relationship. And you find out later on, if you had communicated, could have worked things out.
That's right.
And that's not only in a romantic relationship, it's with everything.
Oh,
right?
definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Dr. Frank, how do people get in touch if they want to talk to you about coaching, about more about real love? How can they get in touch with you?
Well, they can go through our awakeningways.org website.
Okay.
That's a really good way to do it. Just go there and go to the contact page and send me an email. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
Okay.
They can also email me directly at Rev.Frank at thegrid.net. And they can get in touch with me that way. And they can also, by the way, I would recommend to everybody who's interested in this to go to reallove.com. And that's Greg's website. And there are groups that are meeting online constantly through that website. It's a way to take classes. You can watch videos with Greg teaching on that website. There's just a wealth of information right there on his website. And I would probably do that first.
Okay, I watched some of that last night. I got to bed very late because I got hooked on it. It is so powerful, and he is a wonderful speaker. He has a great sense of humor. I loved watching him, and I did learn. I learned a lot of things about relationships by doing that. Okay.
Yes.
So I'd like to thank you, Dr. Frank. We had a great time with you. We appreciate so much that you were with us today. And I'd like to thank.
It was very nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Electronically.
This was a real delight for me because it's one of my two favorite subjects in the world. This and spirituality.
That's wonderful. And Barbara, thank you so much for being here with me.
Always a joy.
I appreciate it. And I'd like to remind everybody that Madhouse TV has some absolutely fantastic other shows. Go on to madhousetv.com, look at everything, and definitely look for the Maverick Soul Hour. Yay! With Tommy Marr. And thank you, everyone, for being with us tonight. Again, I'm Kathy Caputo, and Dr. Janine Burns will be back with us next week. Thank you so much, and have a real love in life. Good night.